This is Dead Body Society. I got a story for you. So a lot of people have asked me over the years, man, what's the most craziest thing you've ever seen? An act of determination, intelligence, and just sheer violence. I got a story for you. So there's this guy, and I can't mention his name because the dude's a made guy, and he's still active, so I'm going to respect that. But here's his story. So in 1990, this cat, and we're going to call him Shiloh, he lands on the yard. And right away, he's got a problem, the guy in the yard. But he can't get to him because although the yards are together, they're actually separate. There's a line in between both yards. So to get to the other yard, he's going to have to get through that fence. Worse, he's got to get a piece out there to kill this guy. How does he do it? So for an entire month, Shiloh begins to make a piece. But he doesn't make the entire piece. He cuts it out, doesn't sharpen it. He wants to get the measurements exact so he knows what he has to do. The piece he's making, 9.5 inches long of galvanized steel. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide by about 9.5 inches long. It's a bone crusher. It's made to kill. But what he does next is something I've never seen before, and it is the pure act of a guy who wants to get something done. So he cuts with a razor blade an incision in his left calf, right below the knee to the right, and he begins to cut. Of course, it bleeds out a lot. He continues to cut. After a day, it stops bleeding. And he does what I've never seen anybody do before, is he begins to cut along the muscle. And little by little, every day he begins to insert a plastic bag into his calf, well, behind the muscle. Little by little, he sticks it in there and he leaves it sit. It's bleeding, but he wraps it, keeps every day. He inches it in about 1/4 of an inch. Bleeds again, he pushes it back in. Bleeds again, he pushes it back in. He does this for an entire month until at some point he has a pocket behind his calf muscle about 10 inches long. When he gets that done, he inserts the plastic in there with Vaseline so it doesn't stick, and he's formed a little pocket. He then begins to make his piece. He begins to sharpen it every day. He gets it completely sharp by going into the shower and using the limestone from the walls to sharpen it to a razor's edge. Comes back to the cell once he's got a point on it, and he draws 2 bloodlines on both sides in order for the piece to go in, and when the body contracts around it, he can pull it out and stab it again. So on the day in question, he inserts the piece inside of his calf, into the plastic, and he performs the act of going outside, which is to step to the bars. You hand the cops all of your items you're going to be carrying: boxers, t-shirt, shorts, tumbler, towel, whatever. And this is where a little bit of the magic goes on. He's already got the piece inside of his calf. It's sealed. There's no way the cop can see it. So he goes through the routine. Open your mouth, flick over your ears, run your hands through your hair, stick up your hands, both sides, turn around, spread your ass cheeks, cough. Let me see your feet. The entire routine, he does it. Lift up your nutsack so they can see it. Once a cop knows he doesn't have anything on him, he gives him his boxers, he puts them on, he puts his tennis shoes on, and he walks downstairs. As he walks downstairs, then he hits the first tier where he has to go through an x-ray machine. It's a little bit tricky. The x-ray machine's for the clothes to make sure there's nothing there. Then they want him, but cops always want the mouth, the chest, the back, because people put a piece usually in the spinal cord, right behind the back so you can't see it, the ass, and of course the bottom of the feet. They can see his knees, they can see his calves, so they don't need to warn that. And that's what he's counting on. He gets past that checkpoint, he walks into a cage, and again, he strips out. They search him again, they go through his things, and then he's escorted to the yard. The yard gate opens, and he steps through. Now he's out there, and the piece is in his calf. So he's waiting, and sure enough, they bring the guy in question, they bring him outside. He's in the yard right next to him. So he's waiting. What does he do? As soon as the guy comes to the next yard, the gunner's doing whatever he does, falls asleep, not expecting anything to happen. These two enemies are in two different yards. Well, this guy does the impossible. He climbs over the 15-foot chain link fence with barbed wire and razor wire around the top. He throws a blanket over it and climbs over and lands on the yard with the guy he's going to kill. Of course, the guy that he's going to kill is another bad dude. He's not going to yell at the gunner and say, hey, look who's coming over. So when our boy Shiloh lands in the yard, the other guy immediately attacks. But Shiloh pulls that piece out, and in bare hands with no handle on it, he pulls it out and begins to stab this dude. This dude has no idea that this dude just pulled out a 9.5 bone crusher from his calf. From his calf. And he begins to stab this guy over and over again. The shock in the guy's face is worth $1 million. Never in his wildest imagination did he think this guy was going to pull a piece out. He figured he's going to fight him. Real guys don't fight in prison. They kill you. And that's exactly what Shiloh did. 46 times he hit this guy. The guy was on the ground already bleeding out, and he continued to stab him. The gunner sees it and then begins to fire into the yard. By that time, guy's dead. Shiloh stands up, hands in the air, smiling, drops the piece, and tells the gunner, I'm done, boss. No worries. Good day's work, and smiles. He then goes, when the gunner is telling him not to move, he walks over to the fence. He climbs over the fence again and lands on his yard, which is yard 1. Again, puts his hands up and just laughs and tells the cop, that's a good day's work, and smiles again. Cops pour out, they're looking, they can't believe what's happened. Shiloh killed this guy. And to this date, that to me was probably one of the most brave, brazen, out of your mind acts I've ever seen. And it was done in front of me. So that's your story for a day. Be safe. Be aware of your surroundings, because your life could depend on it. We'll see you next time.